It can be 2 or 3 seasons that you have this land and you don't produce anything.
Have you ever heard of a food desert? Do you live in a food desert? How much do you really know about the impact that agriculture has on your life? In this video, you're going to learn this and much more. My name is Dan Aberhart, and I'm a host of the Growing the Future podcast. Along with my little brother, Terry, we started this whole thing just to bring you the conversations that we're fortunate enough to have with the great people in our network in the agricultural industry. And we want to educate you and inspire you and motivate you. In this video, I spoke with Jasmine Laverne. Jasmine is my former podcast producer. She's a young woman of color from LA. I wish I was there. An entrepreneur, boss babe, and advocate for social issues. And I wanted to get her perspective because she's outside of the traditional conversations that we're having in agriculture. She has a different perspective. And here she's edited all these podcast episodes and was privy to a lot of the things that we talked about. What did she think? What is she concerned about? What does she care about? I think it was great to broaden our perspective and talk to somebody that's kind of outside of our normal echo chamber. So before we get to the video, remember to like and subscribe to our channel, and also like and share with anybody that you think would be interested in this kind of thing. Enjoy the video. What you were talking to me before about something called a food desert, and I was kind of thinking, like, what kind of desert? Like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, but it's actually something completely different from our perspective. We produce food, but I don't even know what that is or why it matters. Tell us what a food desert is and why you were sort of thinking about that.
Food desert is typically in low-income areas, and the definition is if the closest grocery store to you or market is 2 miles away. So the problem with that is people usually work and live within the same vicinity. So if I have to go 2 miles to get food, that's a struggle for me. If I'm having to take the bus, or if I'm having to watch my kids and get home soon to take care of my 3 or 4 kids. And it's only in low income areas. I would say not even, because I know an area that is pretty wealthy and their grocery store is really far away. It's basically you're not able to get the access to food as you normally would. And in these areas typically are fast food places, so McDonald's and KFC and things that are just unhealthy.
I absolutely agree, and that's a fascinating concept. And I think the challenge is for all of us is to really focus on eating healthy, and it's not easy, and knowing where your food comes from. Where before you caught a little bit of education on the Growing the Future podcast, I mean, was it something that you thought about where food comes from, or you're in the food and beverage industry?
A little bit, because I frequent farm to table restaurants. Yeah, they were really popular back in like 2013.
You know what? I'm like right now, my heart's breaking on a bunch of levels.
Why?
Because I would love to be having this conversation with you at a lovely restaurant somewhere,
right?
Like your favorite, right?
Or the guy who was on the podcast who had fresh beef. We can just go to his house, cut up some beef.
You have to narrow that down. Who was on the show that had fresh beef?
He said that he cuts it for his CEO friends.
Oh, Ben Voss, that's right. Yeah, he had some beef there in his CEO, but he's always asking for beef. I forgot about that.
I was raised by my grandparents, so they tell me a lot of stories. Apparently in their day, the food was more fresh, and that's how they were able to fry food all the time. And my grandma's 92 and she's still living. She was able to eat fried food every day or drink milk because it came in a carton with the cream on top, and it was just fresh. They would go down to the market and get live chickens and go back to their house and kill the chicken, instead of we go and get it all chopped up already and we don't really know who touched our food.
Well, if you've ever had 7-Eleven, I don't know if you have 7-Elevens down there, some kind of like quickie mart, but if you ever had like 7-Eleven chicken at like 2 a.m, it's almost not really food. It's like something else.
I used to eat their hot dogs, and then I like their beef patties. But I never did the chicken because I'm very particular about my chicken. There's a restaurant, I won't name any names, but there is a pizza place that's very popular, who I don't know where they get their chicken from, but it tastes different and it's so small. I swear it's pigeon legs instead of regular chicken.
So getting back to really happy thoughts here, if you were to take me to some sort of farm to fork kind of restaurant in anywhere in America, where would you take me, and what would that taste like?
Great question. There's a place called Farmers, Fishers, Bakers. That's on the Georgetown waterfront. And then they have another location in Maryland. It's pretty upscale, but farm to table. It's pretty cute. You know, salads, fresh
Wow.
food. So another fun thing that I think America has, and maybe Canada does also, is each kind of state or location is known for their food. So growing up in DC, we're really close to Maryland and Annapolis. So it's a big crab culture. And we, in the summers, we sit out, we have newspaper on the tables, and we just have crabs and potatoes and corn and all that good stuff. And we just sit and eat with our families and just get dirty, drink beer. And that's really fun. I think that's what I would do with you. Fresh crabs.
On the Growing the Future podcast, you did quite a few episodes. What was some of the key takeaways that you learned, that, like, what surprised you most about hearing from a completely different world than you've ever been exposed to?
I think being an entrepreneur, the first entrepreneur in my family, understanding that it's different ventures and you don't have to have this one siloed career, right? Or like you don't have to, you might be in agriculture, but you have your farm and then you have your tractor trailers that you manufacture, or then you have your nonprofit boards that you sit on, or you might be going and teaching at university. So I think understanding that it's different income sources for entrepreneurs, that was really important for me.
Yeah, I love that too about agriculture. I mean, there's so much freedom in the scope of farming to be a business person, entrepreneur as you see fit. That's really exciting. And you were mentioning one of your favorite episodes there, Jocelyn Velastek. You really enjoyed her
really
episode.
Loved it.
Yeah,
I found a lot of similarities between us two, just from her like social impact background and how she ties that into her everyday work. So I think the diversity, inclusion, equity portion of my career is my social justice, and then my communications, PR, marketing, amplifying brands is the work that I do to sync the two together.
very nice. I like that. Huh. Well, you're doing lots of good in the world. So if you were now explaining Western Canadian agriculture as you kind of absorbed it through osmosis on the Growing the Future podcast to another person on the street that has never been exposed to it, what would you tell them about farming now that you know that you didn't know then?
I think that it is very, well, I kind of always knew was kind of hit or miss, but actually understanding the hit and missing of it, and that it can be 2 or 3 seasons that you have this land and you don't produce anything. So from a consumer's perspective, I'm thinking, why don't we have any? I remember I was in the grocery store and there were no limes, and I was very upset for a while. But if the lime trees aren't producing any limes, there's nothing we can do, right? So it kind of just gives me a little bit more empathy to you guys, and understanding like it's really stressful for you financially, not just for us consumers who wants their limes on time.
Isn't that a fascinating perspective, that today you hit the tap and the water comes out, and you hit the handle and the water goes down, and you got to get rid of an infection, you take a pill. We're talking on the internet. I've never met you. We've never dined at a farm to or fish to fork. We never fine dine. But we had this connection literally through this technology that didn't exist really when I graduated high school. None of this when I graduated high school, which was a little while ago. None of this technology existed.
Yeah.
And so your expectation is that there's if there
live.
isn't food on the shelves. Who is responsible for this malfunction, and what kind of hell are they going to pay?
And I think it's just the grocery stores, or I think it's the producers. I never think about it's the actual farmer who doesn't have it available.
Well, and I don't think that any of us really can put together, imagine all of the things it takes to get that food supply chain rocking and rolling in the best of times, let alone when we have a pandemic going on. I'm actually amazed how well it really stood up, and it's been, I think, an opportunity to highlight there's opportunities in this crisis, and one is to kind of look at the whole food supply complex and say, well, we're a little bit weak here, we need to be more robust there. But I think there might have been a few media snapshots of some shelves that were empty-ish. But and I'm not saying people didn't go hungry, because I can only imagine for people that were already struggling, There's so many people whose businesses have been affected, whose jobs have been affected. It's absolutely incredible. And it's a weird paradigm in agriculture for us, Jasmine, because often when the rest of the world's in turmoil or there's struggle or there's financial collapse or uncertainty, it's the basic commodities or foodstuffs of life that really take off. And right now we're actually booming in agriculture for the next foreseeable while. It's a very simple equation. Grain is going all around the world. Like, the grain is the foundation of the global food system. One of the really interesting things I was thinking about this particular episode is, like, if we could only know, Jasmine, if we could only know what produce, when, came off our farm at home, Langeberg, Saskatchewan, and somehow made it to you in one shape or another, whether it was food or fuel or some other sort of function. I mean, these are the basic building blocks of life, and I'm sure that our farm has touched you in some way.
Yeah, and it's interesting to be able, and with all the technology that we have now, it's being able to track your food, right? Because if I'm buying a box of cereal, it just says manufactured or produced in Illinois somewhere, random. But, okay, well, where did the people in Illinois get their produce or their products from to make this actual cereal?
How did you like the video? I just want to remind you to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. And what do you guys think? Did you know about food deserts before this? I mean, I had no idea. It's brand new to me. So follow us on our social media channels. We're on basically every social media channel out there, and let me know if you have any questions.